Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever it is, wherever you're at. How's it going? Edgy Tim here. Another edition of the Monday Living on the Edge. September 11th. And certainly want to get into my thoughts on September 11th. Again, not going to get political or anything, but yeah, I mean, I lived it. Here's my ID. Um, we'll get into that a little bit later, towards the end of the podcast, I guess. But yeah, it's just shocking to me that September 11th happened 22 years ago. It's still kind of like it feels like yesterday, but I guess that's what happens when you get old. Everything seems to go by fast, and that really went by fast. That just seemed like it was yesterday. But we'll get into that a little bit towards the end of the podcast. Want to recap and kind of relive my thoughts and impressions from this past weekend. I went and well, technically covered one game, but technically covered two. So we'll get into this. Friday. So Friday, I was fortunate. I decided to stay 5 minutes from my house, which those of you that follow me know that I very seldom have home games. I try to have a home game once a year, maybe twice a year if something playoff wise falls that way. Again, and I've put this out there for years, but I always forget that we have new audience and new people coming on the message boards, especially when I eventually flip this video over for free and put it on the free board. That there's a lot of people there that maybe aren't aware of some of the things that I've just been doing for years, and they don't get it. So um, people always wonder, well, how do you pick what games you go to see? I honestly I go to the best game I think possible. That's what I did Friday, and it happened to be 5 minutes from my house. I thought JCA and St. Rita at Joliet Memorial Busey Bank Field would be a great game, and it was. And so yay for me. I picked a good game. Hey, I've picked games that I thought were going to be good and went halfway across the state and watched a 40-point blowout. I've done that. It's happened before. I'm sure it'll happen again. But the point is to get out and see football. And again, it's a little different this year, the last 2 years now, because for a long time I was doing stuff for NBC Sports Chicago, Friday Night Lights, and so I had to stay in Chicagoland. So I was restricted. I couldn't get out of Chicagoland. Um, that was just kind of the deal with the gig. I had to go to a game somewhere in Chicagoland, and they would send a camera, and we would do our thing. And I miss it, by the way. I hear all the time from people, and I appreciate it. I hear, man, when NBC Sports had high school lights, it was great, and they were all out there, all over the state. They did a tremendous job. And someday, this would be good off season stuff to talk about, but I've got some friends that were involved heavily in the production and just the development of that show, and get them on here and talk about just the logistics alone that went into Friday Night Lights on NBC Sports Chicago and how long it took them to put all that together and get it on the air. It's crazy. I mean, I remember games where we were recording our interviews, our post game interviews at 10:40, and the show started at 11. So again, it's pretty amazing stuff. But the point being that it's always interesting how things change and just how quickly it goes by. But I always appreciate people that come up and say, "Oh man, that show was great," and I know the people that worked on that show that I still talk to also get that as well, and they really appreciate it because believe me, if it was up to us, we would still be doing that show. I mean, it was a good show. It drew a good audience. It actually made money, which it's pretty rarity in TV these days. But actually, it was a moneymaker. So it was one of those rare programs that they could produce locally and be able to do it. So miss that for sure. So that was Friday, and the whole media thing. And again, well, all right. Since I brought it up, we'll talk. All right. So couple of you, some of you have noticed I'm doing stuff for Marquee Sports Network again this year. Very happy to be back with Marquee. And again, it's ironic because a lot of the people at Marquee are a lot of the same people that were at NBC Sports Chicago before Marquee came and developed. And yeah, I know I'm a Sox fan working for Marquee. It's all right. Obviously, they don't discriminate. So they'll hire a white guy that's a White Sox fan. So it's, good for me. But yeah, so I'm doing some content stuff. I'm doing basically my top 30 free poll is now going to Marquee, and then they release it and you'll find it on the site, whatever, you don't care. Pre-game capsule breakdown stuff. The goal is Tuesday or Wednesdays, I will have a separate column / feature. This week I'm thinking about doing like maybe a catch-up story or like a 3-0, surprising 3-0s and surprising 0-3s and kind of projecting out where they can wind up, something like that. But that'll be every week through the season. I know Marquee is talking about broadcasts and doing some games. I don't really have anything else, and even if I did, I probably couldn't tell you anyway. But there are some things in the works, which is great. As you've noticed, how many of you have been watching high school football on TV? Yeah, none of you. Unless you're watching the ESPN national stuff. And outside of that, there's been nothing locally here yet. It's not good. I'm hearing that if there eventually winds up being some local free TV or even pay TV for that matter, outside of the streaming world, you're going to see very limited, except obviously for the state finals, which WCIU is still locked in and obligated to broadcast. So that's something that I'm glad Marquee is getting back into it. And what people don't understand, and someone asked me this question on the board the other day, it was a good one. Why does Marquee always seem to be like kind of last minute here? And it's a good question. I kind of asked him that myself a little bit, but I mean, the priority of the Cubs, it's as simple as that. It's the Cub network, and the Cubs, good for them. They're in a playoff run, and hopefully they get in. They can at least get the wild card and get in, and good for the Cubs. And I mean that even as a Sox fan. Hey, you know what? I'm tired of this. You guys suck and blah blah blah. I mean, yeah, I don't openly root for the Cubs, but I don't necessarily root against them, and that's a lot different than it used to be years ago. Couldn't stand anything Cub, but now, you know what? You've lived long enough, you've been in this town long enough, and there's been so few winners and so few things to enjoy. You know what? Hey, let the Cub fans enjoy a team. I mean, they haven't had very many opportunities, just like my White Sox. So hey, if you get a good year, then dude, just enjoy it and roll with it. So, but again, Marquee's priority is the Cubs, so they got to cover the Cubs all the way through the season. If they go in the postseason, it extends things out. So it's hard for Marquee to really commit heavily until they know what their availability is going to be. And again, I talk about resources, and just the resources aren't there that what would have been 3-4 years ago back in NBC Sports. It's totally different. So, but yeah, fingers crossed that'll happen. And then I mentioned WCIU doing the state finals, and I'll put it to you this way. I'll just leave you with this. It could be involved in one way or another. We'll see. I haven't sorted it out, but we're trying to figure some things. So there you go. You get that to look forward to. All right, so let's go back to Friday. Friday, I go to Joliet Catholic St. Rita. Again, as I mentioned, 5 minutes from my house. And it's really cool. And I love this part because, my goal all along in doing this website and my coverage and, trying to cover the entire state, one guy trying to cover the entire state, it can be a challenge. But the thing I love and what kind of has always been my goal is to play no favorites. I mean, I'm just going to tell you what I like and what I don't like, and I'll pick teams to win, and I'll be wrong, and people will neener, stick it in my face, and it's cool. I get it. It's fine. But I try not to play favorites. I try not to play one area over the other. Now, look, I'm very proud that I'm in the Joliet area. Very proud of being in Shanahan and the Nooka School District, and I openly root for the Indians. They're my home district team. I make that perfectly clear. But outside of that, I really try not to play any favoritism. And JCA is a prime example. I live 5 minutes from Joliet Memorial Stadium. I've known, I've lived out in this area for many, many years now, and I consider many of those JCA friends and alums as my good friends and supporters, and no one's been as supportive as any school as JCA has been of what I've done over the years. So yeah, but when St. Rita fans and coaches and staff say, "Hey, thanks for coming out," it's like, you guys realize I live 5 minutes, dude. I'll tell Marty Hopkins, I go, dude, this is a home game for me. This is yeah. I mean, I'm 5 minutes from home. I was happy as a pig, and you know what? I had a great time, and it was a great game. It was a strange game. I thought Joliet Catholic played really well for like 3 quarters, and then just some weird stuff happened. A couple of turnovers, a block punt, and St. Rita finally got some stuff going offensively, and boy, they struggled. And Joliet Catholic defensively is really good this year. I'll tell you right now. Mike Clark, who I do the Between the Lines podcast with, and I mentioned this on our podcast. He said exactly what I was thinking after the first half, is that JCA is going to be a very tough team in 5A. And even despite the 20-10 loss to St. Rita, they're going to get some things turned around and corrected, and they are going to be a very tough team in 5A. As long as they'll get the wins, they'll get into the playoffs. I know the schedule's not easy, but they'll get there. JCA can be very tough, and the things that I think they need to correct are not earth-shattering. They're not fatal flaws, we'll say. I think they're things that can very well be fixed and improved upon within a handful of weeks, and in JCA overall. So yeah, it's a very good JCA team. Rita, as I said, defensively, I thought they played pretty well. Offensively, they struggled. They couldn't get the running game going. And if St. Rita can't get the running game going, they really have to knuckle down and work to get going. Jed Helding's a terrific quarterback and a great athlete. Wasn't real accurate in this win. Overthrew some kids. St. Rita, to be fair, dropped some balls on him as well. But you give Jed all the credit in the world. He hung in there. He stuck with it and made some really big throws and some really big plays when it counted. And they get the win, and now they'll go into Mount Carmel undefeated at 3-0. So again, got to spend time at one of the tailgates out at Joliet Memorial. Always great to see my friends at JCA. And again, from being on the radio every Thursday, a lot of those are our listeners. So I got to see Bob. I got to see the other Bob. I got to meet a lot of the people that obviously we've known for a long time that call in and listen to the show, and they listen religiously. So it's great. It's great to talk football and to hang out with them and eat their food and just hang and have a good time. So I really enjoyed myself. I mean, I mentioned this. I consider JCA kind of home for me. I know I didn't go to school there. I know I didn't live out, I didn't grow up out here, but, they've just made me feel that way over the years. I truly feel that way as well. And, and I get grief sometimes because I'm really kind of hard with them when it comes to rankings. And I've said it, and I'm going to stick to it. Teams in this area, this coverage, this Will County area, the WJOL area, I treat them like my kids. I grade them harder, and I treat them harder than in probably any other program. Why? Because I am from this area, and I don't want to be seen as favoritism and just overranking teams to overrank them because I live here. I just don't do things that way. So yeah, there's years where maybe I haven't had them ranked, or I've had them ranked lower than they should have been, but it all works out in the end. Remember, rankings don't matter anyway. So, all right. And then Saturday I had a great time. Was back at Illinois State for the second time in 3 weeks. How crazy is that? WJOL covered the Belleville East, Lincoln Way West game Friday at Wesleyan. And then Scott Slocum, whose family and parents live in the central Illinois area, Bloomington, Peoria area. He stayed down there and then went over to Illinois State on Saturday, did the Lincoln Way Central O'Fallon game. Tell you what, folks, Lincoln Way Central, a very good story so far this year. And I think they're going to wind up being a real success story. Dave Woodburn takes the program over from Jeremy Cordell after last season. Dave comes in, hires several quality coaches, guys that have been in that Lincoln Way program and that district for a long time. A lot of alums that had played for the one Lincoln Way school. Yes, believe it or not, folks, not so long ago, there was only one Lincoln Way. So you've got some great connections there. And this team is just well coached. I mean, they looked really good on Saturday. Well, again, Coach Woodburn spent a lot of time heavily influenced by Rob Zavonar and Lincoln Way East. Offensively, Central is going to remind you of East. Defensively, Central is going to remind you of East. And there's nothing wrong with that. Look at the track record of success. I think more schools should rip off and borrow and beg and steal from Rob Zavonar and his guys. I mean, they've done an unbelievable job with that program. Lincoln Way East has never not made the playoffs. So yeah, sign me up for that plan. I'll follow that plan and win some games for sure. And that's what Central did against a very good O'Fallon team. I know I didn't think O'Fallon was a top 10 team in 8A. That's why I didn't rank them in my preseason or my 8A polls. I thought they were maybe top 15 to 20 in 8A. And I still kind of feel that way, even despite the loss. I think part of the issue in that loss for O'Fallon was, I think defensively, I just don't think the teams in the Southwestern Conference see like a lot of double wing, a lot of counters and traps. And it's just an offense that, if you're not familiar with it and you don't see it and have to defend it on a regular basis, I compare it a lot to like a military academy offense where it's a lot of double wing and again, a lot of full house backfields and options and very, very hard. It's a very hard defense. You have to be incredibly strict in your assignment. You got to play assignment based defense, and everyone, now 11 guys, have got to do their job for it to be successful. And if there's one breakdown, that offense always seems to find it and exploit it. And that's what East did. Defensively, they were very good. O'Fallon, ton of speed. I mean, as always, O'Fallon, Coach Geddes, just really, really talented guys. A quarterback. Sorry, I don't have the roster in front of me. Their quarterback's got a cannon. He made some sideline to sideline throws on a dime that were really, really impressive in this game. But again, I just think the difference was Lincoln Way Central's offense was able to kind of control clock and move the ball and finish off drives as points. And O'Fallon had limited opportunities. And when they did, Lincoln Way Central's defense just played great and made big plays. So a lot of fun to watch. Not a lot of superstars on Lincoln Way Central. Just a really good group of kids, good team, and just hard. You could tell this is just a hardworking team that just gets after it. So again, I know I put Lincoln Way Central into my top 30. I think O'Brien might have put them into his 25. It's amazing how things are similar, but I'll let you figure that out someday. Let's talk polls a little bit. I don't want to get too hung up on this because I don't know how much you guys really care, but I'll give you my thoughts anyway. So I had a couple new teams, and I mentioned Lincoln Way Central gets in. I thought they earned it. I just thought it was a quality win on the road against a quality opponent. They're 3-0. I think they deserve to get in it. The other two that came in, and again, I know there was some banter on the message boards about Wheaton North, and that I was kind of quote unquote undervaluing or just not paying attention to Wheaton North. No, it was not right at all. Wheaton North's the real deal, no doubt. Knew that going in, knew that in the preseason. But the early schedule was a little loose, a little scary. But they are in at 16, and they earned it. It's a huge win against St. Charles North. And again, it's the Duquesne. I compared to Duquesne a lot to the CCL, ESCC, CCL. They're all going to beat up each other in conference play. I fully expect it. You got Batavia going to St. Charles North this week. I wouldn't be shocked if there's an upset there if North beats Batavia. Geneva is going to be a factor in all this as well. So they're all going to beat each other. So wasn't totally shocked to see Wheaton North get that win and wind up in the poll, and they're going to stay there. The other team I added was Downers Grove North. I mean, you go into Glenbard and Glenbard West and Glen Ellen, and you beat West at West on a Saturday. You're a damn good team. That's all there is to it. And knew that going in, knew that in the preseason that Downers North was going to be one of a handful of teams in the West Suburban Silver outside of Glenbard West. And, for some reason, I still have Lions ranked. I don't know. Other people don't like Lions, and I know they had a week 1 loss. Going to stick with Lions for a little while. I want to see how they do against Glenbard West this week. But, so I really like Glenbard West early. I liked Lions early. Now, you gotta roll with Downers North. I mean, there's a lot to like there. Noah Battle's having a great year. Again, it's a team that just hard nosed, blue collar, just a really, really good ball club. Owen Lance, who's a sophomore quarterback that, I've been hearing about this kid, and he's another one. Owen's another kid that has been sneaking into my showcase camp since he was in grade school. And we all knew he was in grade school. But again, like a handful of those other kids that we allow in as grade schoolers, he could sling it. And he could hang with varsity quarterbacks. And that was going back when he was in 6th, 7th grade. So not surprised at all at the early success he's having. I'm just expecting him. I think by mid-season, he's going to have one of those games where he's just going to go off and put up some big numbers. And we've seen it from a couple others already this year. I think Owen's the next one to get to that point. So again, Wheat North definitely earned it. Downers North definitely earned it. So those two are in. I mean, I had to drop Naz at 0-3. I know how tough their schedule's been. I would not be shocked for them to bounce back and start winning games, but it gets to a point where you gotta go. You gotta go. Glenbard West again at 1-2. Thank God for that kickoff return for touchdown. Otherwise, Glenbard West would be 0-3 going into playing Lions this week. That could be incredibly tough. And again, it's and then there's one other team I really struggle. There's a group of teams I struggle with when it comes to rankings. And the biggest issue I had was Brother Rice and Marist. And I have for a while, and I'm very honest about it. I know that Marist beat Brother Rice. I have the interwebs. I saw the paper. I saw what happened. I saw the results. And I had Marist ranked a spot ahead of Brother Rice, rightfully so. But then, I guess I'll say as expected, Marist loses pretty handily, I guess, to Loyola. Again, not shocked. Saw it was coming, but I still can't argue. Brother Rice wins handily against St. Ignatius, which I think is a pretty solid St. Ignatius team. It's not beating a Loyola, but it's still a good win. I just, in my mind, I cannot say, well, Marist, you don't drop because you beat Brother Rice and Brother Rice is ranked one spot below you. I just can't do it. It makes no sense to me because rankings are, to me, are a week-to-week thing. That's a big part of that, obviously, your momentum from week to week. Now, again, here's another example of that. This week, Brother Rice plays at Loyola. If Brother Rice beats Loyola, well, that makes things interesting. If Loyola takes care and handles Brother Rice, well, I'll be honest, you could probably expect a similar drop to what Marist had this week to what Brother Rice could have potentially next week if they do not win and beat Loyola. 1 or 2 point game and a loss, changes things a little bit. Sorry about that. I get the penalty for having my phone on while I'm recording. I apologize. So there's poll talk. I mean, other than that, there hasn't been a ton of change, quite honestly. The others has some interesting teams. I was going to tell you who I think the next team to get in would be. Not that you guys really care, but let's take a look. So again, just a reminder, the free side of this poll is via Marquee, and I'll usually release that Sunday night or Monday morning. So in case you're looking for it, I know people get all upset. Oh my God, it's all pay. It's all pay. By the way, subscribe. What have you been doing? We haven't asked for more money to subscribe to this thing since we started premium. I mean, is there any other business in the world that hasn't raised their prices like us? No, especially in this economy. It's not even close. Spend $8.33 a month or whatever the hell it is anymore. I can't even tell you what it is. 30-day free trial. Take advantage of it. Sign up for 30 days. If you like it, hang out. It's cool. Stick around. That's all I can tell you. So again, I would say next team in. I mean, Naperville Central lost, but I kept them in because I think they're a pretty good team from what I've seen. Sycamore's very good. I've seen them live. Bolingbrook, a very close loss, obviously, to Naperville North. Bradley, 3-0, playing Lincoln Way East. That's always seems to be a dangerous game for Lincoln Way East. But the team that I'd say is probably right there, probably Wheaton St. Francis. I just think the Spartans are starting to figure some things out. Alessio is playing terrific football these days, and Wheaton St. Francis is going to be pretty good from here on out. So we'll see. But yeah, so there's the poll talk for you. If there's anything, if you guys ever have any questions, the polls and stuff, just post them on the board. I'm glad to answer anything. I don't duck anything. I don't hide from anything. If I screw up, I'm the first one to tell you. It's just kind of how I've always rolled. And so again, had fun at Illinois State. By the way, I did radio, so I was up in the press area, in the new press area. Absolutely gorgeous. I mean, that whole new side of Illinois State that they built, they just did a great job. It's real big concourses in the back, plenty of room, so you'll be able to get something to eat, and there seems to be enough. The only thing I wonder about is the amount of concession and what's available. We'll see. I don't think it'll be an issue. I'm sure they will kind of staff those up, but like with any stadium, that's kind of been an issue we've seen where I don't know if it's a case of they can't get people to work or it's just harder to get people to work at those events, but we'll see. I'm sure they'll be on top of it. So that's really about it for the week. This coming week's going to be busy. A little bit less on the scouting reports, a little bit more on recruiting. As I mentioned, I'm going to do an underclassmen feature this week. Basically just listen to top kids that I've seen so far underclassmen wise, and a little bit of a breakdown of them and what are positives in their game and what have you. So that's coming. My games this week, I'm looking really hard at Peoria at Normal Community. Huge game in the Big 12. Normal Community's beating the crap out of people, so that's kind of interesting. And well, Peoria is Peoria, so Peoria is always interesting. Would have loved to have gone to Peoria Stadium to see it newly renovated. I know you guys know I'm a huge fan of it, but pretty good game in Normal. Again, relatively close to home. So I'll be back at Illinois State for 3 times in 4 weeks. But yeah, so that's probably my Friday. Saturday, I'm thinking Glenbard West. So probably Lions at Glenbard West on Saturday. Haven't officially set it up yet, but what I'm kind of thinking of. So, all right, everybody, that's it for this week for Living on the Edge. But one other thing, and I'm sorry, I almost forgot about this, but I'm glad I wrote myself a note. So I'm at Illinois State on Saturday, and I'm doing the broadcast with Coach Joe and Scott Slocum on WJOL, and I get a text, and I get a screenshot from Twitter, and someone telling me, hey, man, you need to check this out on Twitter. It's pretty cool. And then all of a sudden, about 10 minutes later, my phone blows up. And I got a bunch of people tell me, hey, man, go look on Twitter. It's really, really funny, really cool. Well, again, thanks to Mike O'Brien from the Sun-Times, and I'm going to put this up so everyone can see it. Downers North. So everyone signals and plays differently. You got a lot of wristband teams. So you do the hand signals and look at your wristband, and that's the play. Some teams do cards, flash cards, play cards. Well, Downers North does play cards, and on one of the play cards is the DGYTIM cartoon graphic. And Mike O'Brien got a picture of his iPhone with that graphic. I'm going to try to bring it up here and show you guys if you haven't seen it. You've all seen it because I use it in Twitter. I use it all over the place. It's basically just a cartoon character of me. It was done like 20 some years ago by the Godfather, Corey at Rivals back in the day, one of our graphic guys who just came up with it last minute. It was really funny and just it stuck. So, so it's funny. All these people with these cartoon things like, wow, look at me I'm so edgy. I've had it like for 20 some years. So whatever, losers. So again, the see Downers North, use that on a play card. Look, it could be a dummy signal. I don't care what it is. They could be dissing me. I don't care. It's just really cool. I thought it was awesome. I called the Joe Horeni and actually I texted him Saturday night. Said, "Hey, congrats on the win. And by the way, that was a tremendous honor." So just great. So I definitely, I had already planned to go see Downers North this year. Now I'm definitely going to see Downers North this year. And thanks to the Trojans for making me smile on Saturday. So I'll put that up and make sure you guys get to see it. So there you go, everybody. Thanks. Have a great week, and we'll be talking to you soon.